Do we really understand poverty? Few instances in my life in different parts of the developing world. I was in Indonesia on one of their islands, and we were invited to share at a house meeting. And after the meeting, the host and hostess, who lived in real challenging conditions financially, tiny little or glorified hut, let's say, and they brought a little snack plate out, and there were circular uh, snacks. And I asked the party that brought us, drove us there, what's this? And she said it's made out of sweet potato, and it was circular. So I tasted it, very nice, handed the plate around, and then they brought another plate. This was triangular in shape. I figured it's a different kind of snack. And again, I asked my party that brought me there, I said, "And what is this made of?" She said, "This is also sweet potato, Brother Andrew." I was like, she said, "Well, they are quite poor. They actually grow it in their little backyard, sweet potato. So they've made the snack out of the sweet potato that they have grown and just formed them in different shapes to make it look more presentable." How deeply that touched my heart. Then when I was only a child, about 10 years of age, so the first incident was in Indonesia, I described. The second one was as a child of 10 years in India, when a neighbor lady sent her one son over to our home, our little home, to borrow just one matchstick. They had a matchbox. They had run out of matches. Whatever little they had left to cook, they needed to light the fire, and they ran out of matches. She sent her son to borrow not a matchbox, one matchstick. They didn't have the money to buy another box of matches back in the day. Try and imagine that level of deprivation where one does not even have a few extra cents to buy a matchbox. And then again, to my childhood, often for breakfast, just before walking to school, all we would have to eat was one thin pancake. One thin pancake with a little black coffee. The norm in that culture and country was to have coffee or tea with a little sugar and milk. We did not have the money to buy milk. So that's why it was black. Then, when I was a little older, maybe about 12 or 13, I remember one day a street vendor carrying a wicker basket on his head was selling bananas. And my mom called him in to the gate of our compound, of our little walled off yard. And he came in, and as he was taking it off to put it down for my mother to choose from, in that instant, it's nothing to be proud of. I saw a loose banana and I quick removed it from the back so he didn't see it. Young, skinny lad that I was. And I hid behind a little tree in the yard and I was wolfing down that banana. Unfortunately for me, coming from a family of many boys, one of my brothers spotted me. And after my mother had bought some bananas from the gentleman and he'd gone away with his basket, my brother had told my mother what he saw me do. My mother called me and said, "Andrew, did you take a banana from that man's basket?" And I hung my head down in shame and said, "Yes, Mom." Now, what she did to me really struck me deep in my heart. She said in front of my siblings, "I never thought you, of all my children, I never expected you to take that banana, to steal that banana." that was worse to me than a sound thrashing, which I would have deserved, but that struck me to the core of my being. Another instance, when I still remember, I believe it was grade five or six. We were in the gym. I was again this poor boy on a scholarship for poor children, no pocket money, and at the gym we were lined up, grade 5 or 6, 11 or 12 years of age, and one after one we would run and do a somersault on a little padded mat and then come back to the end of the line again. And the boy just in front of me, uh, he did the somersault, ran down, did the somersault, and I saw something bright, flashy, fall out of his pocket. It looked like a coin to me. And I was next in line. I followed, and when I did my little somersault, magically, that quarter flipped into my pocket. I was fairly adept at performing that act. I couldn't go home with 25 cents with a quarter. It was too much money for a poor boy. So I stopped at a vendor and got some shaved ice with sugary water. Couple of them, I felt like a king with the stolen money. And the balance, I thought I could get away with this in case my mother ever found I had this in my pants pocket. Now, this continued on for many years, and every time, every new year, I saw this boy, my classmate, my conscience would prick me. And then we came to our senior year, and it kept striking me. Andrew, return the money to him. And I did not. We graduated and went our separate ways. Then I finished university, I got a job, my financial status had improved some. I remember I was at a busy shopping area, and I saw the same boy, my former classmate, walking down the same street. I rushed down, caught up with him. I whipped out $5, equivalent for quarter to $5, and I handed it to him and said, please take. He said, oh, hi, Taylor, how are you? I said, I'm fine. And I said, please take this. I said, you may not remember, but in grade 5 or 6, this happened at the gym, and it was a quarter from your pocket. He looked at me and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Just keep your money. and not in a rude way. It's like, you're kidding me. I have no recollection. And he went on, but that night I slept like a baby. These are some of the things that poverty and hunger can drive or bring a person to. No wonder David says to the Lord in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 8b and 9, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food allotted to me, lest I become full and deny you, and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I become poor and steal and profane the name of my God. And how true that is. Those in developed countries, Western countries, have too much over and above. I don't say that out of jealousy. It's just that there's an excess. They have so much over and above, and they tend to walk away from God as they wallow or hold on to their overabundance and self-sufficiency. But even in developed countries, there can be self-induced poverty. Let me mention, and these are all pseudonyms, not the real names of the persons. A gentleman named Nate in Pennsylvania, husband and father of at least 4 little children at that time. They joined our cell group, care group, and he was full of bluster, boasted great things. And come Christmas time, one couple who had been blessed by the Lord said they could see through that Nate was full of bluster, and they felt for the 4 little children. And they said to myself and another friend, Don, would you all be willing to go to Nate's house and his wife's house and bless the four children with these Christmas gifts we've bought for them? And so my friend Don and I consented to do that. And when we went there, it was a shocker. It was a teeny little apartment upstairs opposite the county prison. We climbed up rickety, partially rusted metal stairs from the back, came in through the tiny kitchenette, and we thought it would come into a living room, but it was just a room with no sofa set, no beds, just some mattresses stacked up on end against the one wall, and on the other side, two metal boxes. Before they came up with suitcases, they used to have metal trunks or boxes. And they asked us to sit down. So we sat on those boxes. You can't imagine the shock that went through me in these United States of America. This is what I call self-induced poverty. Neither Don or I wanted to stay too long. We were gracious and kind and had a little casual conversation and shared that this is from someone in the cell group. They didn't want their names to be given, gave it for the children, and left. I left in shock. Don and I were both stupefied. It was such a ramshackle, run-down, tiny apartment. We were so blessed to be able to be conveyors of the gifts for Christmas for the four little children. But this was the USA, my friend. Nate had brought all this upon himself. What's worse, his poor wife and four little children were suffering because of this, because of his indolence, laziness, braggadocio, and irresponsibility. Then there was another person, let me call him Jack. Suddenly he inherited a chunk of money from a deceased uncle. Oh, this was in India, by the way, from a deceased uncle. Within a month or so, couple of weeks, he blew the whole amount. Friends thronged around him with wild living, hopping into taxis, going out to the bars, getting drunk. I last saw him in a horse-drawn cart, which is the really poor person's mode of transportation. He blew the whole amount. Self-induced poverty. I've seen a gambler who had lost it all, literally bending over, diving through trash from the dumpster for food. Heartbreaking. A one-time personal friend of mine, my peer, probably a year younger than me, got hooked into drugs. I'll just call him Tom. Handsome young man. So much of promise. Ruined by drugs, became skin and bone, quit college. And one time I saw him, he'd lost a couple of his teeth. Obviously, most likely in altercations when he couldn't pay the person providing the drugs or didn't pay back. One day he came to where I was working, found me in my break time, and pleaded with me for $2. What for? For his next fix. I knew I couldn't give him that money, but I said, please come with me. I took him to the cafeteria, and I offered to buy him lunch. He was skin and bone. He refused, and he looked at me like it was all, I felt being manipulated. You mean you won't give your own friend $2? I'm like, how could I do that for him to get more drugs back in the day? And so he just walked away from me. He refused the lunch I was going to buy him. I heard a few years later that he had passed away. Tragedy, an overdose. Another fine classmate of mine, handsome, athletic, so much of promise ahead of his life, went to the same university that my wife, Anne, attended engineering college. Terrific physique, became hooked on drugs. Last I heard is he was killed when crossing railroad tracks. He was identified by his dental records. One gentle lady near Sydney, Australia. This pastor said, "Would you like to come? I'm doing some visitation today." I said, "Okay, I'll join you." Before we could enter her apartment, there were trash bins outside her apartment door with dozens of flies buzzing around them. It was overfilled with babies' diapers or nappies. I was so apprehensive about stepping into her apartment behind the pastor. Kudos to him, hats off to him for paying her the visit. She had a baby on a high chair and another little child in her arms. There were clothes, clumps of clothes all over the floor, on the sofa, the one sofa, and there was cat poop, litter in between the clothes. I literally had to step gingerly over clumps of clothes and avoid the cat poop at the same time. I literally tried to hold my breath. I couldn't wait to leave. What should we do? You think you understand poverty? I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm appealing to us to try and appreciate what I have seen and experienced in my own life. 3 things we can do. First, ensure this never happens to us. Work diligently, be a saver, be a responsible carer of ourselves and our loved ones. If married, our spouse, and if family, our children. Second, do reach out and help those who are less fortunate or less privileged than us, especially those who suffer for no fault of their own, like those 4 little children of that totally irresponsible Nate in Pennsylvania. And third, we can get involved with a soup kitchen or some such charitable organization that helps the underprivileged near you. Water Street Rescue Mission, whoever, Teen Challenge, those that do outreaches, genuine, preferably Christian organizations that help and feed the poor. May we be sensitive to the needs around us. I close with Proverbs 19:17, which says, "He who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord, and he will pay back what he has given." If you haven't yet, would you subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, like, share, and comment below. Thank you, and God bless you.